In the past year, there's been a lot of discussion about the piracy of anime, with quite a few prominent YouTubers weighing in both for and against it. None of this discussion, though, has touched on manga, though the problem there is just as big. Big enough, in fact, that the Japanese government has officially asked internet service providers in Japan to block access to websites that host pirated manga. And yes, piracy definitely has a large effect on the industry. In the past decade, while the anime and manga community has unquestionably grown, the net revenue of the manga industry is down from 4.3 billion to 3.9 billion US dollars, or about a 10% decrease, not including inflation. And this decrease is largely attributed to piracy. So yeah, the problem is pretty huge, and that's what I'll be talking about today. Now, to make a couple of things very clear, I am not coming to this discussion with the moral high ground. While I have spent hundreds of dollars buying physical copies of manga series I enjoy, I also read a metric bleep ton of fan translations. So, let's look at why I, and hundreds of thousands of other people, pirate manga, what the legal options are, and how things could be changed to encourage more legal purchases. In my experience, there are three main reasons people turn to pirating manga: ease of access, affordability, and community. People will almost always take whichever option is the easiest for them. So obviously that rules out going to an actual bookstore or library. Now, as you're sitting in front of your computer, when you Google read insert manga name here, the fan translation will almost always appear first. Hell, a legal way to purchase the series you're looking at may not even appear on the first page of results. And that's where most people stop looking. People don't generally search extra hard to find a way to part with their money. Also, if the series is just a bit more obscure, it probably doesn't even have an official English translation. I think it goes without saying that if you're not one of the most hardcore fans, you're not going to devote years of your life to learn Japanese, so you can legally read a series when there are other options available. Given that translations are free, they'll always have a financial advantage over official releases. But I'm not such a cynic as to think people will never be willing to spend money on manga. It's just an issue of price point. As Steam sales demonstrate, people will buy things, even if they never use them, as long as the price point is right. Anyways, at the moment, a volume of manga generally sells between about $7 to $10 USD per volume as an ebook, and sometimes more for a physical copy. Assuming an average price of about $8 a volume, and given the amount of manga I've read, about 250 volumes a year, I'd be paying about $2,000 a year for manga, which isn't particularly affordable for most people. Maybe I read more than the average, so let's assume I'm an outlier and instead look at how much you could read for the price that you'd pay for other forms of entertainment media. So, Netflix or Crunchyroll each cost about $12 a month, or the equivalent of 1.5 volumes of manga. Now, looking through a thread on the topic, it looks like it takes people on average about 30 minutes to get through a manga volume. So, for 1.5 volumes, that would be 45 minutes, or about 2 episodes of anime. Given that most people probably watch a lot more than just 2 episodes per month, this makes the price for manga seem just a bit high. Another comparison we could use is the manga and visual novel versions of Yumineko. The visual novel version of Yumineko costs $60 on Steam without any sales or price reductions. Given that there are 53 volumes of the manga, which cost $13.65 a piece in ebook format, that would cost you $723 to read the story in manga form. About 12 times as much. That's a huge discrepancy in pricing, suggesting that maybe manga prices could come down just a bit. In my experience, most of the online manga community is based around fanscans. Official translations often lag far behind the Japanese release, if there is even an official translation of the series, and the fan translations are often more timely. People want to stay up to date about what's happened most recently in a series, so anyone who wants to discuss the series online reads the fanscans. You can't really participate in a lot of discussions otherwise. If you look at r/manga, which is one of the bigger forums to discuss manga, all the chapter discussion threads will have a link to a fanscan, so it's somewhat inescapable. If you decide to wait until the official release comes out, you just won't have anyone to talk to about it, unless A, there's a forum somewhere that discusses manga only after its official release, or B, you have some highly ethical real-life friends. Incidentally, if there is some magical forum that only discusses things after the official English release, please let me know. I'd be curious to see it. So, now that we've gone through why people pirate manga, let's look at some of the legal options that actually address these problems. First of all, we have Crunchyroll, which has a manga library of 72 series that you can read if you're a premium member, which is great, at least from an affordability point of view. Unfortunately, only about half of the library are simulpubs, and that's including series that are already finished. And the library itself is kind of tiny compared to Crunchyroll's anime catalog. Also, its UI is worse than most fansub sites. First, if you want to be able to read anything, you need to go into full screen mode, which it'll automatically take you out of whenever you switch chapters. Not too bad if you're just catching up on this week's releases, but super annoying if you're binge reading a series. Also, I've found they occasionally compress pages together, which adds to the irritation. To be quite frank, although I pay for Crunchyroll, if I'm going to read more than a couple of chapters of a series that they have, I'll probably just visit a pirate site for ease of use. Another affordable option is Viz Media's online publication of Shonen Jump, which costs just $26 for a yearly subscription and currently has 22 series running in it. Given that the average series has 5 volumes worth of material released a year, that's 110 volumes a year, which makes $26 seem like a pretty darn good deal. And it stays up to date. The reader it has is pretty nice, with a quick transition between pages, and the ability to bookmark pages, actually adding some functionality over the readers on pirate sites. The only drawback of this being that it's only for weekly Shonen Jump, so it's slightly less helpful if you're mainly into shoujo or seinen series. Oh, there's also Comixology too, a company belonging to Amazon that you can buy a $6 monthly subscription to read an unlimited amount of manga, comics, and graphic novels that they have on their site. Seems cool, but it's only available in the States, so as a Canadian, I haven't been able to check it out. Also, I have noted that only some of their series have an unlimited tag on it, so my guess would be that the supposedly unlimited access only extends to the small portion of their series that have that tag. Now, since I complained about the limited number of series on the past couple platforms, I should mention that Bookwalker actually does a pretty good job having everything with just under 1,700 different manga series. It just has the slight problem that it's not particularly affordable, with them charging $2 for a chapter, or somewhere between $7 to $15 for an ebook. Which is expensive, especially the chapter price, which is just nuts. That price puts it at 80 times more expensive than the aforementioned deal Viz has. So, all that being said, how can manga piracy be reduced? Well, first, let's recognize that just telling people to be more ethical doesn't work. Nor does telling people piracy is bad and here's how it hurts the industry. While in both cases you'd be correct, all you're achieving is making people defensive and getting a lot of dislikes on your videos. What could be more effective is raising the profile of the legal options, and making those legal options more attractive. So, this next bit is addressed to the people legally distributing manga. First of all, for God's sake, actually advertise your existence, please. I'd never heard of Comixology or Viz's Shonen Jump deal until I started doing research for this video. You have good deals. Actually let people know about them, please. Also, for services like Crunchyroll, you've done a great job advertising your anime service through sponsored content on YouTube. Do the same thing for manga. It's added value to the service you provide, so actually talk about it. On a similar note, try to improve search rankings on Google. Generally, if I search watch insert series here, the first couple links are all legal. But if I search read insert series here, most of the time the pirate sites come up first. Being more active with DMCA requests to remove pirate sites from Google search results and having sponsored links to legal content would definitely be helpful for people trying to find your stuff. Now, in terms of service provided, let's talk about the readers. First of all, having one page at a time is easier to read than having 2 pages together and having to use full screen. So please steal that format from pirate sites. While you're at it, copy the option they have that lets you scroll through an entire chapter on one page too. It's really nice if you're binge reading. Make it at least as nice for people to use your legal service as it is to use a pirate site. In terms of adding value, having some sort of indicator of where you left off when you're reading would be nice. Being able to follow series so you get notifications of when it updates would also be helpful. And specifically for Viz Media and their weekly Shonen Jump deal, it would be great if you could also vote in the Shonen Jump surveys. That last one would be a huge value added if it allowed you to help prevent your favorite series from getting cancelled. Finally, just make sure your price point is reasonable. People will pay money for manga, just not thousands of dollars a year. I can't honestly say I know what the right price point is to optimize profits, but given the current piracy levels, it's probably a bit lower than what they're currently at. So, that's all I had to say. What do you guys think? Do any of you just buy from legal sources? How about people who only pirate? If you are someone who's currently in the latter group, what would it take for you to start buying legally? Let me know in the comment section below. Anyways, thank you all for listening. Cheers!